Clouds the colour of dull iron drifted above the hills of Venar as Leora climbed the broken stairs to the ruined observatory. Each step rang with the hollow echo of a place that had waited too long for company. She carried a satchel stuffed with papers on which nothing was written, pages of deliberate silence, sheets alive with the weight of everything she had never dared to say. At her belt hung a cold iron chisel the length of her forearm and a mallet of blackened yew. These items, she had been told, were the price of admission to the Whisper Forge. Most people in Venon dismissed the forge as a folk tale smuggled out of the mountains by half-side travellers who wanted an extra dram of wine. But Leora had spent months piecing scraps of rumour into a map. The forge lay somewhere beneath the observatory, reachable only when a storm gathered enough electricity to rouse the old brass mechanisms embedded in the stone. Tonight, the storm murmured overhead, tugging silver veins of lightning across the clouds, like threads through dark fabric. She reached the top landing, heart rattling against her ribs, and found the telescope dome cracked open. Wind shouldered past her, whistling through torn copper plates. With practiced fingers, she tugged at a brass lever hidden inside a mosaic of constellations on the wall. The floor shuddered, cascading gears unfolded, exposing a spiraling staircase that curled below like a throat awaiting speech. As she descended, the storm's percussion faded, replaced by a low metallic respiration. It sounded almost as if the mountain were inhaling secrets. At the bottom, she came to a gate forged of interlocking tongues, bronze, silver, tarnished gold. None bore marks of a hinge or latch. On impulse, she pressed her palm against the cold metal. The tongues vibrated, then parted with the soft click of lips unsealing from a kiss. Beyond the gate stretched the chamber whispered of only in fragments vaulted, glowing from seams of molten glass that oozed like honey. In the centre blazed a furnace, no fuel visible, its flames shifting colour from indigo to green to a white so bright it approached absence. An anvil squatted beside it, black as a void between stars. Tools hung on iron hooks, tongs delicate as spider legs, files encrusted with garnet grit, hammers with heads carved into yawning mouths. Leora crept forward. Heat licked her cheeks, yet did not burn. Instead, it teased out memory. She remembered being 8, wanting to tell her mother that the reeds behind their cottage held sleeping swans of light. She had swallowed the words because her father's anger surged at any mention of what could not be weighed or taxed. She recalled being 16, wishing to tell a girl named Sierra that her laugh tasted like candied ginger. That confession had sunk undeclared into her chest, rusting quietly for years. Unspoken words, the myths said, did not vanish. They drifted like cinders until they found the forge, where they could be shaped into something with edges and heft. A figure emerged from the shimmering air behind the anvil, a woman composed of hammered copper plates overlapping like feathers. Her eyes glowed furnace height. Her voice sounded like chilled water poured onto coals. "You have brought materials," she said. "May I see?" Leora opened her satchel. The blank pages fluttered like startled moths. The smith lifted one sheet and traced its pristine surface with a metallic fingertip. As she did, letters blistered up, glowing ember red. Leora saw the words she had never offered Sierra rise in cursive, "You stir storms behind my ribs," and she inhaled sharply, embarrassed by the old desire. "This is good ore," the smith murmured, silence hardened by longing. "Shall we begin?" Leora nodded, throat tight. The smith fed the page into the furnace. It did not ignite. Instead, it liquefied into a rope of incandescent metal that she caught with tongs. She laid it on the anvil and swung a mouth-shaped hammer. Each strike expelled sparks that fluttered away, singing faint melodic syllables. Stroke by stroke, the liquid cooled into a sliver of rose gold. Within minutes, a key emerged, bow-crafted like intertwined reeds, shaft etched with a laughing girl's profile, teeth shaped like tiny wings. "For the river of courage," the smith said, setting the key on a stone pedestal. "What else do you carry?" Page after page surrendered their invisible sentences. One held the rage she had swallowed when soldiers tore down the market stalls of refugees. That became a key, heavy and serrated, smelling faintly of iron filings and tears. Another held the apology she had never offered her younger brother for abandoning him to their father's bitterness. That cooled into a key lined with soft velvet barbs. Between forging sessions, the smith quenched her hammers in a trough of liquid obsidian. She never asked why Leora wanted the keys. The need was self-evident to any who arrived. At last, only one blank sheet remained. Leora hesitated. The final silence pulsed like a heart within her. "I can't," she whispered. The smith tilted her head. "Every unsaid word that still burns must be given, or the set will be incomplete." Tears seared Laura's eyes. "This one could undo everything." "Or unlock what everything stands upon." The blank page trembled between Laura's fingers. It contained the sentence she had thought but never formed the night her mother died. "I blamed you for leaving me with him." The guilt of it had shackled her tongue for years, preventing her from honoring her mother's memory openly. She laid the sheet on the anvil herself. The smith watched, silent. The furnace flared, and the page dissolved into silver-blue light. Leora lifted the mouth hammer. Its weight surprised her, lighter than she'd expected, yet dense with possibility. She struck, and with each blow her tears sizzled on the hot surface. When she lifted the finished key, it looked like a fragment of twilight, dark around the edges, luminous at the center. "For the river of release," the smith intoned. "Your set is complete." 7 keys lay before Leora, each distinct yet resonant, humming in sympathy like tuning forks. Their combined music formed a chord that made her bones tingle. "How do I find the rivers?" she asked. The smith gestured toward a corridor now visible beyond swirls of smoke. "Follow the sound of what you still believe to be impossible." Leora gathered the keys into her satchel. The corridor narrowed, walls writhing with veins of opal light. After several bends, it opened onto a cavern whose ceiling vanished into starlit darkness. Here, the air vibrated with the hush of withheld torrents. Across the cavern's floor, 7 bronze-bound doors formed a semicircle, each embossed with an image corresponding to one key. She approached the door adorned with reeds spunk. At its center, a keyhole glimmered. When she inserted the first key and turned, the metal door softened like wax. It folded away to reveal a river suspended vertically, as though painted on air. Water glided upward and downward simultaneously, sliding over itself in paradoxical currents. "Take and drink," the water seemed to murmur, though no mouth spoke. Leora cupped her hands and scooped liquid from the impossible river. The water tasted like fresh mint, and the last rays of sunset, courage spilled through her veins, flooding caverns of hesitation she hadn't realized were so vast. She felt suddenly taller inside her own skin. She withdrew the key, and the water settled back into stasis, the door reconstituting behind her. One by one she opened the other doors. Compassion, fury, joy, memory, sorrow. Each river held a hue and flavor distinct as a personality. At joy, water sang against her skin like distant bells. Its fury, it crackled with sparks, scalding and exhilarating. Each draught rewrote her interior weather. When only the twilight key remained, she hesitated. The final door bore no image, only a mirror-bright surface. As she neared, her reflection distorted, rippling into younger versions of herself. The child, the teenager, the sullen adult who'd hoarded all these silences. She pressed the key home. The door didn't melt. Instead, it sighed and became a doorway of lenses sliding past one another, revealing a river black as spilled ink flecked with stars. Release. She drank, and the liquid filled her like night tide, drawing out every echoing accusation she had leveled against herself. Images surfaced, her mother's smiling while braiding Leora's hair, her mother's face pallid in death, her own clenched fist. The river's water washed across these scenes and reframed them. A mother who had fought illness as hard as she could, A daughter too young to understand fragility, two souls negotiating love in incomplete sentences. The heavy knot in Leora's stomach loosened. She exhaled, a sound between a sob and laughter. When she turned, the 7 keys floated upward, orbiting her like gilded planets. Their hum had deepened into a low chord that vibrated the cavern itself. Cracks spidered through the walls. Water seeped from fissures gathering in swirling pools. The hidden rivers were no longer content to remain behind doors. Alarm flared. The stories she'd heard never mentioned what came after unlocking. She sprinted back along the corridor, the keys following like obedient fireflies. By the time she reached the forged chamber, water was already sluicing down the walls, carving rivulets across the floor. The smith stood ankle-deep in it, unperturbed. "You carry their mouths," she said, nodding to the keys. "Now they wish to speak." "What happens if the rivers flood the mountain?" "The mountain will learn to swim." A flicker of humour glinted behind her furnace-white gaze. "Go above ground. Listen." Leora obeyed. The stairwell was now a waterfall. She fought upward, drenched yet strangely buoyant, as though the rivers lent her lift. She burst from the observatory into storm-tossed night. Rain hammered the dome, but beneath that ordinary deluge, a stranger sound rose. The hiss of many waters. From cracks in the hillside, jets of luminous liquid streamed, weaving across grass like serpents of pure colour. Some shone ruby, others emerald, cerulean, gold. They coursed together, braiding into a radiant torrent that raced toward the valley where Vinar's stone aqueducts waited dry as bones. Lightning backlit thunderheads, silhouetting the new river system etching itself across the land. Villagers emerged from cottages, torches guttering. Eyes widened at the spectacle. Children laughed and reached into passing water, then whooped as their laughter echoed in choral harmony. Taste of joy. An elderly man crying beside a silent son dipped trembling fingers, and the water shimmered crimson with shared fury, after which he turned to embrace the boy in peace. Leora realized the rivers were not for her alone. They belonged to any who had words unsaid, emotions unspent. The keys hovered around her shoulders, still singing. She walked downhill toward the gathering crowd. The mare stomped forward, moustache bristling. "What new sorcery is this? Our wells will choke, our fields will drown." Leora met his anger with calm. "They are waters of truth. They flow where we have damned ourselves shut." The mayor's lips twisted, but then a child tugged at his sleeve, offering a cupped handful of shimmering teal water. He glowered, yet curiosity pricked him. He drank. A shudder coursed through him. His eyes softened. Slowly he knelt to the child's height and asked a question Leora could not hear. The child answered, tears bright as dew. They embraced, water cascading around them. All night the rivers threaded through Vinar, filling fountains long dry, slipping beneath doorways, curling around bedposts. Some houses glowed warm amber, others flickered storm green, still others shimmered violet at the edges. Each colour revealed an emotion, allowed passage at last. Before dawn, the rivers settled into channels the land itself sculpted. Brimming but contained, they glimmered under starlight like veins of a waking giant. At sunrise, Leora sat on a stone bridge watching courage and release mingle below. The keys hovered beside her, sound quiet now, waiting. Footsteps approached, the coppersmith, but of flesh now, no longer plates. She looked human, hair blackened with soot, eyes gentle grey. "You're the forge," Leora murmured. "I was its custodian, a role my shape mirrored." The woman smiled. "But the forge has moved, into any place where words wait to become keys. Your work forged its freedom. What becomes of the keys? They remain with you until you speak them aloud to others. Keys are transitional beings. They wish to become bridges, doorways, songs." Leora considered. Will the mountains flood anywhere else? Only where silence has damned hearts, which is to say, everywhere, eventually. But each place needs a keys singer, someone brave enough to turn a hammer against her own quiet. Fear fluttered through Leora like a startled bird, then settled into determination. She rose. "I will travel," she said. "I will teach the myth as instruction, not warning." The woman inclined her head. "Then I, too, am free to wander." She opened her palm. A tiny ember flickered there. Raw silence, unshaped. "When you must forge anew, call me. I will bring the fire." They parted at the crossroads. Leora slung her satchel, once heavy with blank pages, now weightless, keys circling her in patient orbit. She walked the river-lined road toward villages, yet unaware of their thirst. Far behind, thunder growled again, but this time she heard no menace, only promise, the throat-clearing of clouds preparing to speak rain. In the weeks that followed, travelers carried tales of luminous waterways that appeared like revelation. Some claimed they dreamed of a young woman arriving with singing keys, inviting them to write down what they could not utter. In each account, the forge manifested differently. A garden shed glowing at dusk, an abandoned mill, the hollow trunk of an ancient oak. Yet the process remained. Silence entered, song emerged, rivers woke. One evening, Leora found herself in a coastal town whose cliffs trembled with unvoiced grief. A storm churned offshore, and fishermen paced the docks, unsaying the names of comrades lost to last winter's squalls. She rented a storage loft overlooking the sea and set the anvil in its center. The keys flared, casting ripples of color against salt-bleached boards. Words spread as though on wind. By moonrise, the loft brimmed with blank pages, each handed over by someone willing, finally, to speak through forging. A widow brought a note written to her husband that had sailed beyond return. A sullen teenager surrendered a sheet containing words she feared might make her mother weep. Each page Leora fed to the furnace. Each molten silence she hammered until keys clanged true. She found that with every swing, the force travelled not just through metal, but through herself, echoing the first forging deep inside the mountain. Her arms grew strong, her heart stronger. She became less smith and more resonant chamber, a bell rung by collective yearning. By dawn, 7 keys had multiplied into dozens, each attuned to an individual's river. The townsfolk took them to the cliffs and unlocked the winds. Instead of destructive gales, gentle draughts lifted kites stitched with the names of the dead. The town's children danced among fluttering strings. Widows breathed ocean air unsalted by tears. The sea, benevolent, and accepted new songs. Months stretched into a year. Everywhere Leora travelled, she left behind networks of rivers, winding through fields, cities, deserts. They did not disrupt trade routes or flood granaries. They adapted, creating culverts, cisterns, fountains that sang at dusk. In places of strict governance, officials attempted to dam the waters, decreeing silence again. But keys are viral when multiplied. Any tongue could become one with a single word uttered honestly, and water, as always, bound or made a path. At last Leora returned to Venar. She crossed the bridge where courage and release flowed side by side. Children perched on its railing fishing for shimmering minnows that blossomed into memory lights when touched. She climbed again to the observatory, now restored into a school, where novices learned cartography of emotions. In the courtyard grew willows whose leaves whispered confessions to passing breezes. The original stairwell into the forge had sealed, worn smooth, as if it never existed. Yet she felt the hammer inside her chest, ready should silence gather like ice. She placed the 7 primal keys on a marble plinth at the courtyard centre, beneath a plaque inscribed with simple instructions. Take only what you need to unlock the river within, then return the key in trust to the next traveller. At twilight, Leora walked the garden paths and sensed no looming hush, only the ordinary quiet of dusk fertile. Relaxed, she realized the myth had inverted, no longer a clandestine forge hidden from the world, but a world reforged around the simple act of voicing the unspoken. As stars materialized above the hills, she lifted her face. Somewhere distant, another person stood on the threshold of words unsaid, trembling. She imagined the first strike of their hammer, the flare of molten confession, the birth of a new key. She heard the future river rushing toward them, patient and unstoppable, and Leora smiled, knowing the sound of impossibility had changed forever.